We're going to mix this up. I want you to decide in this blind test which one is the LG and which one is the Sony. So the fun of this is to show you, and the reason why we're doing this review or video in a blind test kind of way is to show you the differences between processing, the AI upscaling myths, and be that as it may, maybe change your mind about the way you approach TV sales and watching YouTube videos and gathering information. So again, which one do you think is the LG? Which one do you think is the Sony? This is going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to tell you about some of the differences that I'm seeing side by side. I'm not going to tell you why I'm seeing differences. I'm not going to make an opinion for you. I'm just going to tell you things I'm noticing as I'm looking at it. I can tell you the image to the right is really, really sharp. Very, very clear. It's almost like looking at 3D without the need for 3D glasses. I love what it's doing there. Though the image to the left gives a very natural look. I see very realistic shades of green where the image to the right doesn't necessarily have that. I see, again, red, particularly to the right, a bit stronger than the image to the left. And as I look at them both side by side, both have good contrast and clarity, but the image to the right does tend to pull way ahead, especially in this particular example. Now, I'm going to get the next example up on the screen. The next demo, as we should say. Okay, and again, the whole point of this blind test is to change the way that you approach these videos. I want you to look at it, try to look at every detail, try to ascertain everything you can, and tell me which one's the Sony and which one is the LG. I won't tell you model numbers or anything like that, just which one do you think is a Sony and which one do you think is an LG. Based off of the picture, the processing, everything you know about the two brands, try to make a decision. The color to the left, not as strong as the color to the right now. Again, that is expected to change depending on what scene that we do put up on the screen. Beautiful colors all around on both TVs though, good brightness. This demo does a tremendous job of bringing out the most that these TVs have to offer for sure. Beautiful deep red on the TV to the right. Looks absolutely gorgeous. Skin tone's a bit bright to the left. A bit bright. They look very identical here. Kind of hard to tell which is which, especially in this example. I mean, as I'm looking at it, I see stronger, again, clarity to the right. And again, this is just my assessment and what I'm noticing and what I'm seeing. But again, it's always fun to do blind tests so that you know how you rate TVs and if you're seeing it right, or maybe you're not seeing it right. So we're going to look at it with this Hisense demo. The image to the left is definitely more pale by comparison, for sure. Doesn't have the same amount of depth, I would say. The image to the left definitely has good color though, good brightness. The image to the right, it's alright. I mean, it could use some work, especially in those skin tones. As we're checking out this demo, that looks amazing on the image to the right. And again, just every scene that you're looking at, tell me which one you're rocking with more. And then tell me the brand you think it is. Which one is the LG OLED and which one is the Sony OLED? Which one do you think is which? Okay, let's go to the next example. I'm going to skip that one since I went halfway through on that one. We're going to let this one play out, because this one's a pretty catchy demo. I like this one. I think we can see some differences as far as skin tone now. There's definitely a difference in depth, for sure. I'd say there's a difference in brightness in this scene, for sure. Not as much color to the left that I'm noticing on the right. Just looking at the two side by side. I mean, which one? Again, lock in your answers. Let me know what you think. This demo is very, very orange right now. I can make out like none of the detail in this demo. Probably poorly shot, but I like the opening of the demo anyway. So I said, what the hell, let's look at it anyway. Very colorful demo. But it doesn't really have a whole lot of detail that's been preserved the right way. Demo issues happen like that sometimes, so I'll just find a different demo. Because I don't think you're going to get much out of that example. This is a Samsung demo, I believe. Beautiful, bright highlight and contrast on the image to the left. Very stunning. The horse definitely has a lot of three-dimensionality for sure. But not as much contrast as the image to the left. Kind of a reoccurring theme. Alright. Beautiful colors though. Like brown's a little bit better on the image to the left. That clarity to the right, though, is something else. I see every little detail. It's insane. It actually is insane, like thinking about it. Alright, so let's go to the next example. Big difference as far as color and how it's representing it. Now skin tones for sure. So which one's LG? Which one is Sony? Tell me which one you think is which. That's the entire goal of this video. I want you to tell me which one you think is which one. Beautiful color to the right. Just insane. Color to the contrast to the left, though, is crazy, though. Lots of clarity. I mean, again, both these sets are fantastic. I mean, tons of beauty in both of these, truly. Image to the right is just pulling forward for me. Good color to the right. Alright, so let's go to the next demonstration. This is the Philips Hue Ambilight demo. Don't know that this one's going to be particularly helpful since there's so many different colors that pop up on the screen. Tons of clarity to the right, though. That's pretty ridiculous. Beautiful color, though. But we're not doing the Ambilight demo. I don't think we'll get much out of that as far as comparisons. So I'll use this one. So again, just asking which one do you think is the LG? Which one do you think is the Sony? Can you spot which one is which? Can you see a difference between technology types, panel types? Can you see that difference on camera? That is the entire point of this video. Can you truly see a difference in technology type on camera? We'll see if you can. Which one do you think is Sony? Which one do you think is LG? Where's your vote? Where is it going? Right? Stunning demo, by the way. Looks pretty nice. A lot of detail where it matters. And that's always good. Next demonstration. Where's the LG? Where's the Sony? Can you see a difference? Right? So now I'm going to skip this demo. I'm going to go to something else. I think this is a good one to showcase. And again, they both look really good. Very, very sharp demonstration material here, so hopefully this will help you in your choice and in your guess. The image to the right, the image to the left has a lot of clarity right now. Beautiful bright highlights, stunning clarity. Absolutely tremendous, actually. The image to the right has a lot more detail, but the image to the right, for this example, has a lot of clarity, especially as they're going through the streets. Definitely has a lot of clarity. Like that bike is just so three-dimensional right now on the left. It's just beautiful. Look at that. They both look pretty sick, can't lie. Could you imagine actually doing this shit in real life? Like, I would be so terrified that I would just be brain matter on the side of a street or some shit. I would never risk it. I would never do this. You couldn't pay me to do this. At least jumping off of buildings and shit. Why jump off of a perfectly good building? Leave it the hell alone, I say. Alright, so which one is LG in your opinion, and which one is the Sony? I always try to refresh this question as much as I can throughout this so that you can tell me which one you think is which. Not gonna lie though, you must feel like a real life superhero when you do shit like this though, because you're doing all these crazy stunts and whatnot. That's always pretty fucking dope. That's pretty impressive. Both TVs doing great, by the way. This is one of those comparisons where everybody's a winner. There's no, you have a bad TV kind of thing. That's not what kind of video this is. Incredible. Right? Alright, let's go to the next demonstration. Absolutely nuts. This guy's out of his damn mind. Couldn't pay me to do that shit. No way. This is a lower bitrate type of demo to showcase cleaning up of low bitrate content. So, which one looks clearer too, I guess should be a question that we ask. Which one looks like it cleans it up better? They both look beautiful to me. Beautiful, beautiful picture quality. I'd say they look kind of identical until you get to scenes like this. You start to see a lot more of that contrast, depth, a lot more of those details to the right for sure. Better controls over highlights though, to the left. Both are pretty images. But, I mean, it boils down to what you think at the end of this whole thing. Alright, so that's how it handled low bitrate content. Who do you think handled that better, left or right? Which one? Next demonstration. Jumping off of perfectly good mountains. There's no fucking way I would do that. That is absolutely insane. I couldn't tell you how people get it in their head to ever try shit like this and not be afraid. Absolutely unhinged. At least that's my take on the matter. Again, this is another one of those low bit rate examples. So you can see. No, hell no, there's no way I'd be up there either. Well, which one looks good? Which one looks better? Can you find a difference? Which one do you think is LG? Which one do you think is the Sony? Right? Next demonstration. Probably not going to get much out of this one. I go to the next one. Go to the next one. Want something a bit more colorful. Yeah, that'll do. Now, it's at this point that I want to do the big reveal. Because I think a video like this is kind of pointless if you don't eventually say what is what. And at this point, I will be so glad to let you know the TV to the right is not a Sony. It is the Samsung S90D. The image to the left is not an LG. It is in fact the Samsung S95D. Now, this whole video was a test of your senses to see if you could actually tell the difference and to show you that cameras and what a creator is willing to tell you goes a very long way into what you believe you're looking at. Which is why I was very careful to say which one do you think is which, because I let your imagination create the story. Which one? Are you seeing a Sony? Are you seeing an LG? Or could you tell the difference between panel types? Because if you thought that one was a Sony and one was an LG, you likely can't tell the difference between panel types, because what you're actually looking at is the native color space versus the normal color space. That's it, folks. That's the big secret. That's all I did. And the whole purpose of doing that is, again, to show you don't always know what you're looking at when you watch something on camera. You might think you know. And you could even convince yourself that you have an answer. But the more time goes on, the more you start to realize there's a lot more going on. And that's the whole purpose. And just so you guys see that I'm not lying and that this is in fact a Samsung and a Samsung, open up the menu. And there you have it. My Samsung S95. I'm in the optimized mode. I could easily go down to the AI mode as well if I wanted to. The AI customization mode. And make sure that I'm in the native, which I am. Peak brightness is off. This is the Samsung versus the Samsung. Right? And open up the settings on the other one as well. So you can see it. Look, they're both Samsung. Samsung's menu pulls up. Rocking my AI optimized settings. Samsung and Samsung, guys. There's no Sony and there's no LG in this blind test. So, what did we learn? The takeaway is simple. When you watch comparisons and you think you see differences between panels and you think you're seeing something, you're not actually seeing it. Because the truth is, when you watch things, your mind can play tricks on you and you can think something that isn't really there. Because there was no WOLED here. There was no Sony Bravia here. All the amazing details and processing that you thought you saw comparatively, it was all still just Samsung. Which should also change the way you think of things. Don't just listen to the AV influencers overhype things and sell you lies and make you think that certain brands aren't on the same level of other brands with the processing. Because you're seeing in real time that you just believed something else. If you made a decision either way, that one was an LG or one was a Sony, effectively you believed that the processing was vastly different between the two to a point of no return. And you believed it is what I'm trying to get you to hold on to. And because you believed it, you have to kind of question everything you've been told about these TVs. A lot of people talk bad about Samsung and say that they're just unrealistic. It's just not the way. It doesn't look great. It's not. You got to get a Sony. You got to get an LG. They do better for skin tones. They do better for everything. I mean, okay. But look at this blind test. And really take it to heart and think about what it is that I was showing throughout the entirety of this. Because the differences, they are there. All right? And when differences are there, we owe it to ourselves to kind of do our due diligence and kind of talk about what we're seeing. So I'm going to put it back in its AI optimized mode. I'm just going to go ahead and turn off AI mode and just kind of do it this way as well. Just, why not? I always think it's fun to do it this way. So you can see the differences between the two, or maybe lack thereof. The Samsung S95F has beautiful contrast. So if you have this TV, or S95D rather, so if you think that the S95D is just some chump of a TV that can't hold its own against the S90D, that's not correct, as you're likely going to see in these examples coming up. It does a great job. Now, again, the S90D is a monster. We have to call it what it is, even if you don't want to. I mean, I'm rocking my best settings, and still this thing is fucking incredible. Like, you got to kind of scratch your head as to what they fed the S90D when you use the AI mode. I don't know why AI mode hits like this on the S90D. It hits hard. And again, I have theories that it's likely because of the extra, headroom that it has. When you have a lower brightness, you're able to target contrast more aggressively because it's not over brightening. You have a lot of headroom to retain a bit more detail when it's not over bright, where brighter things tend to lose detail a bit more. So it's possible, but as you can clearly see here, contrast can come back on the 95D as well. But I wanted to show this off because I don't think a lot of people would ever even attempt to do a comparison like this where they show you a difference between the two. Now you see more detail here, obviously, on the 95D. So you clearly see where it has its advantages for processing and things like that. And again, I think this is a brilliant thing that more people should start to get into, kind of questioning and asking, am I really seeing what I think I'm seeing when I look at reviews and videos and all that? Because on the one hand, it could be oh so convincing, and then in the next breath, not so much. In the next breath, you're looking at something entirely different, and you're like, well, now wait a damn minute. Is this really, I don't know, is it? And then now you got to rework the whole thing. The reason I'm doing this now is because this is the time of year where a lot of you are going to be making one of the biggest purchases you'll probably make in a while. You're buying a television, or you're maybe thinking about updating your firmware, or whatever it is. You want to make sure that you're making these decisions based off of things that are actually there. Not things that you perceive, not things people tell you are there, things that are genuinely there. So hopefully by showing it this way, I can get you to accept that every brand has its strong suit, and every brand can easily be mistaken for another brand. And more importantly, for people who are purists, who do think highly of other brands, I think this is a video to show them, because it shows you that you can't just put a stroke of a broad brush across everything. Sometimes there are going to be some differences that are just undeniable, and that's okay. But in other times, in other instances, not so much. And the whole message of this video is to question everything. And if I've got you to do that, and I've got you to think differently, or maybe approach televisions and the way you're looking at them online a little differently, or even your thought of what you think a brand like Samsung is capable of from a processing perspective, well, I think that's an important step towards buying something that actually suits you versus just falling in line with what you've heard other people say. We're not in the business of regurgitation. You know, I don't want to regurgitate everything. I want to say something brand new. I want to give you a new perspective, a new lens to look through so that you can make a better decision for yourself. Both these TVs, by the way, are stellar. The S95D and the S90D. They're both incredible S-ranked TVs. I love them. I own them both outright. They are my TVs. And each one does something different. The S95D is known for its tremendous highlights, good clarity, and depth. The S90D is known for its class-leading color, superior color, frankly, compared to most TVs, and its astronomical attention to detail. How it draws those details out is just on an entirely different playing field from most of the TVs on the market, period, which is why I named it the champion of 2024, even above all the other TVs. Now, it did get nerfed, which is unfortunate, and we did lose a considerable amount of brightness, but the AI mode does bring that back, so we're able to kind of restore it more or less side by side as kind of like a co-winner with the S95D as a champion still. As you're clearly seeing, this is champion level performance. But the point is, I don't think anybody was prepared to admit that Samsung had this level of processing under its hood. I don't think anybody, because the other guys don't use these features, they tell you to turn them all off, even knew that Samsung with their AI was this capable. Now, the image to the left is non-AI. The image to the right is with AI. I mean, you can ultimately decide which one works best for you. I mean, my optimizations are on both of these, so either way, you know, it is what it is there. These are not out-of-the-box settings. This is not an out-of-the-box comparison. This is something to show you a difference that I hope you can see, because this is a conversation worth having. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty and just being a good sport and participating in this blind test. Until the next video, I'll see you guys later.